In this episode, we will learn about how to methodically get your typer to the promised land of open communication. We will discuss the first and second levels of open communication. The third and fourth levels are in the next video. We give you some tips to remember while you are on your way to open communication. First level of open communication.
Hi, now we are going to talk about the very important topic of open communication. We all know that's the promised land, that's where you want to go. And so Judy is going to talk about it using the laminated letterboard. And of course you can do it on other devices, but that's what we're going to use with Elizabeth, okay?
Okay, so what we're going to do is use a lesson that I wrote called Hello Universe, the Voyager Spacecrafts. I'm going to skip the first paragraph. I'm going to move straight into the second just because it has open communication questions in it. Okay. Voyager 1 and 2 were launched on September 5th, 1977 and August 20th, 1977, respectively. RESPECTIVELY. The Voyager spacecrafts were two interplanetary INTERPLANETARY probes launched by NASA with the aim of exploring the outer solar system and beyond. Many scientists involved in space exploration, EXPLORATION, regard these spacecraft as two of the most significant achievements in space exploration history. Our Voyagers have made numerous groundbreaking discoveries, and more than that, they are humankind's first big announcement to the galaxy that we are here, our big hello to the universe. Okay, now I'm going to skip the earlier questions because we're talking in this video about open communication. Okay, now I have a blue question here. All right, that means it's a prior knowledge question. And it's not quite open because there is a limited number of answers to it, but since I don't know what Elizabeth is going to respond, it's kind of an open question. So she could also choose to answer it in a sentence. I don't know how she's going to answer it. And the question is, name another spacecraft launched by NASA. So let's see what Elizabeth says. T H E S P A. Okay, S P A C E S H U T T L E. The space shuttle. Done. Boom. Okay. Now, I don't know, did you make that mistake on purpose?
We need to show how to use the X to correct mistakes, right? Let's have some fun with this lesson.
That was awesome.
Yeah, showing the use of the X or backspace bar on the laminate. So that's good, Elizabeth.
Thank you for doing that, actually. Okay. So she could have answered, I think it's really interesting, or I'm a big fan of the space shuttle and I watched all of the launches. So it's sort of an open question there because even though there's not an infinite number of spacecraft that have been launched by NASA, I would still consider that an open answer. Okay, I had no idea what she was going to say.
Which is kind of funny because we live in Florida and we live very close to the Kennedy Space Center. And so we go out and watch launches.
Do you know that's one of my bucket list dreams?
Used to go watch a launch?
Yeah, in case you didn't notice, everybody, I'm a little bit of a space geek. My dad is a rocket scientist, and literally a rocket scientist.
All right.
I worked for NASA for many years and stuff, so. Okay, so now we're going to try open communication. Now remember, the reason I wanted you to see this particular question is I have those 4 levels in my own head. Okay, I have 4 levels of open communication. what happens to a lot of parents, especially, but CPs in general, but especially parents, is what do we want more than anything in the entire universe is to talk to our children and to find out who they are. And parents who are getting close, what they start doing is shoving that board in front of their kids and saying, so how do you feel today? Okay.
That's the hardest question to answer.
It's the hardest question to answer. And the funny thing is, if you actually think about it, why is it hard? If you ask me how I felt today, I could give you probably 12 different overlapping emotions. So I'm really happy because I'm here with Elizabeth and Ginny. And I'm excited because I love making these videos and I can't wait to share all this with you and have your kids talking. And I'm a little bit stressed because my son Alex has actually been really sick. Okay, and he's still on the road to recovery. And I'm really tired because I have to get up at 4 o'clock every morning and give him medication. And I was in the hospital with him for 3 weeks. And I could go on for 20 minutes telling you all the things I am right now. That is the last question you're going to ask your kids.
That's right.
Okay, it really tends to dysregulate them enormously. And while that's the first thing you want to know, it's also going to be the last thing you ask. Restrain yourselves.
Questions about how we are feeling can be dysregulating for so many reasons. Do you mean physically or mentally? Many of us have difficulty locating pain in our bodies. We also are frustrated much of our day, but grateful for all you do for us. So, please ask this question in smaller pieces when we are fluent typers.
So, what I...
And by the way, I just have to say, though, one of the things that we did, I know as the bridge to saying, how are you doing, is to say, tell me 3 things about your day that were great.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's why I'm just trying to make sure that you understand that there are bridges to get to the place you want to be.
I tended to start with things like just, more like, how do you feel when you're spelling? Because it's a little bit more targeted. So it's not that different actually from what you're saying, Jane. It's targeting that moment. How does this activity in particular make you feel, rather than how are you today? Okay. So, but that is still the last thing I ask with any student. The first thing I ask them is a question like, what would you name a spacecraft that was our first hello to the universe? Why? It's creative, but that's not the reason. The reason is because you can answer it in one word. If she chooses to name it George, that is a correct answer. So it's also good because I'm trying to remember to teach you guys that if you see them pause, or that wandering finger, or she hits NXQP, it's not because she can't answer the question. It's that thinking finger, and I want to have you guys watch out for that. Don't despair. Remember, if I said to you, what would you name it? You would go, and you'd pause, and you'd think, and you'd go up into your head, and you'd contemplate it for a minute. Give your non-speaker exactly the same opportunities. Remember that what they're doing with their hand when they're spelling is exactly the same thing that I'm doing with my mouth when I'm talking. The behaviors of speaking are universal, whether somebody is signing or spelling or talking with their mouths or even writing. We all pause and think. Okay, so Elizabeth, what would you name a spacecraft that was our first big hello to the universe?
I am demonstrating thinking. Please give us time to think.
I, E, R, A, L, L, I really, M, I, G, H, I really might, N, M, E. I really might name I, it, G, E, O, R, G. I really might name it George, period, and done. Apart from being hilarious.
I really appreciate that Judy kept the board down to see where I was going. She didn't make me go back for my 2 switched letters in the word, really. We all make typos, and sometimes it's good to just move on.
I want to point out several things that happened there. Elizabeth paused and thought. Okay, I didn't rush her. I sat and waited, just like she would sit and wait for me if I was pausing to think. Okay, she hit I, R, E, and you notice I didn't say a word. Because for all I know, she wanted to call it, Irene.
Yeah, that's right. Irene, yeah. Could have been.
So I had to wait. Remember, don't say a word until you know with 100% certainty what she's spelling. What she ended up spelling was I really. And at that point, I could say I really out loud. So I only said the letters beforehand. Again, I'm pausing. Okay, M-I-G-H-T. That was clear. I really might. She paused again. Okay, name it. Okay, George, and then notice how I waited for her to hit the period and then the done button.
Yes.
Because she might have wanted to say, on the other hand, I think naming it, the world's greatest explorer is what I want to name it. I don't know that she's finished talking. Okay, so I waited for her to hit the done button.
The done button is important to make sure we type everything we want to type. You can also put it on a stencil or sensory board.
Okay, so that's how typically I start with an open question. Something that she could have literally said George, and that would have worked, or Irene.
That's right.
Okay, so I look for opportunities within whatever lesson I'm doing to look for those kind of 1-word, maybe 2-word answers. Okay.
This first level of open communication is critical for both the typer and communication partner. You have practiced for months with answers that are known and semi-open. Now it's time to pick words out of your own head. You can do this. Second level of open communication.
Then I'll start looking for slightly more complex ones, but still within the context of the lesson. Okay, again, remember the lesson provides structure. Okay, I'm not asking her, what do you think about the state of the world right now? Because that's an enormous topic, and she might want to focus in on events in the Middle East or the upcoming presidential election, or there's just an infinite number of things for her to say. But if it's within the context of a lesson, again, it provides at least a little bit of scaffolding.
Yes.
So, if you were to send out I'm skipping reading for you, okay? You can find the lesson, as I said, on the Communication for All Academy website. If you were to send out a space probe, what would you like to learn about the universe? Now, think about it, it's a slightly more complex question. Again, she could just say, more planets. Okay, she could just say, aliens. Right? So she could answer in 1 word, but this more lends itself, as opposed to the previous one where George would have been perfectly acceptable, to a little bit more of a conversational question. All right. So if you were to send out a space probe, what would you like to learn about the universe? I, V, E, L, I, E, V, I believe, A, L, I, E, I believe alien, L, I, F, E, I believe alien life, E, X, I, S, T, S. I believe alien life exists. Done. Okay, so there we had a whole sentence. Okay, now sometimes what I do is a little bridge. So supposing that she had answered the first one, George, I might have used that as an opportunity to say, would you mind telling me that in a sentence?
Mm-hmm.
Because again, there's kind of an infinite number of ways. I would name it George. I might name it George. George strikes me as really funny, so I think I'm going to name it George. I was contemplating naming it Irene, but I decided I'd name it George. In other words, there's an infinite number of ways to actually answer that in a proper sentence. So sometimes, Ginny, I actually do a little like interim thing.
Right.
Okay.
Expand the utterance.
It's an expanding the utterance in open communication.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that to me is kind of step 2, a little bit more, and I might then engage in a conversation. I believe alien life exists. Why?
Yes.
Or, where do you think it might exist? Or do you believe that we have ever interacted with alien life on this planet, and so forth? So there are opportunities sometimes to ask a little bit more. Okay.
In this episode, we discussed open communication. The first level of open communication is to ask an open question with a one-word answer. Please be patient with the thinking finger. The second level of open communication is to ask an open question with a multiple-word answer. The answer can be more conversational. Some tips to remember are to only say the words when they are known with certainty, and this is not the time to ask, "How are you feeling?" That will come later. Here is a representation of the first 2 levels of open communication. Your episode exercise is to select a C4A Academy lesson. Ask open questions with a one-word answer. Try expanding the utterance. When successful, ask open questions with multiple word answers. Be patient, this takes time. Here it is, your moment of zen.
A, B, S, N, O, N, L, N, U good, T move, E look, L, M, absolutely, T, M, H, N, E, N, B, N, E, N, S, N, T, T, M, H, I, N, absolutely the best thing, A, B, O, U, T, S, N, P good, E good, L, L, I, N, G, F, O, R, C, O, M, M, U, N, I, C, A, T, I, O, N, I, S, T, H, A, T, I, C, A, N, T, E, L, L, P, E, O, P, L, E, I, L, O, V, E, T, H, E, M. Absolutely the best thing about spelling for communication is that I can tell people I love them.